everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be a new review video where I review 4 mystery thrillers that just came out in 2021, and I wanted to let you know which ones I thought were worth the read, which ones you can probably skip. Obviously, this is my personal opinion. I feel like mystery thrillers can be so hit and miss that just because I like them doesn't mean you will, and vice versa, but I will be mentioning the pros and cons so you can decide for yourself. And these will be spoiler free in the beginning, and then I will mention spoilers at the end. I'll make it super obvious on the screen and everything so you can skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. And if you realize that the book doesn't sound interesting, you just want to know, you can get to hear all the tea. So let's start with the best one in my opinion, and it is The Push by Ashley Audrey. That kind of sounds French to me. This one is a premise that I've read a couple books and seen a few movies actually with that premise, which I'll put some on the screen. The books that I've read, did not enjoy them, just to compare. And it's a mom that has a child, usually a daughter, I feel like always a daughter, and she started questioning if there's something wrong with the child or if she's going crazy. And I think this book did 2 things better than the other ones that I've read. First off, there is always a useless, if not shitty husband. Totally the case there too. There's the I feel like if your wife start thinking there's something wrong with your baby, you know, maybe you should support her or make sure she gets help if she needs it. But for the things that this book did so much better than the other ones, first off, there's the fact that there are some like flashbacks to the mom's childhood and then her mom and grandmother. And it kind of hints to possible intergenerational trauma or possibly some mental illness that could explain, you know, what's going on. And there's the fact that the ending, no spoiler, was overall way more satisfying than the ones that I've read in the other books. I feel like that can be so hit and miss. I feel like I personally just want an answer, you know? Like at least make it somewhat clear which it is. But if you just leave it too open, in my opinion, it's just that the writer just didn't know how to finish the book, which means you suck. So, you know, just my personal opinion. But I thought that this one was really good. Quick read, it's about 300 pages. I flew through it. The writing was great. I do think there are a few scenes that are a little intense, so maybe look up trigger warnings, but I mean, the topic is kind of obvious there and could be emotional for some people. And I ended up giving this book about 4.25 stars. Definitely a really solid read. I enjoyed it. I guess it's a psychological thriller, and yeah, definitely a solid one. Do recommend picking it up if that sounds like your cup of tea. The second book I'm going to mention is the next one that I have no spoiler to mention, and it is Every Last Fear by Alex Finley. This is a debut author, so I went into it with fairly low expectations. The story was what attracted me. The first sentence is, they found the bodies on a Tuesday, which solid start in my opinion. You're following a kid who his older brother is in prison because he was accused of murdering someone, and then his family was just murdered in Mexico, and well, it looks like it's, you know, just a natural death, you know, gas leak kind of thing, but suspected to be a murder. And you just flip-flop between these 2 timelines of the family going to Mexico and then him trying to figure out with the agents what's going on. And the story was okay. I don't feel like the twists were really shocking or anything. Personally, I was just, you know, about to give it about 3 stars. But there are a few sentences in there that I feel like should have been edited out because they just made no sense. And I'm mentioning that because I finished it this morning as an audiobook. I'm going to make you listen to something that was said in the epilogue. There's about 5 minutes left to the book, and it's just ridiculous to me. I just want your opinion, really.
And watching the sunset is probably too symbolic of toxic masculinity in the patriarchy for Sophia.
In what world would a female character think that her to go watch the sunset is symbolic of toxic masculinity and the patriarchy? There are a few quotes like that throughout the book that just screams like trying to be woke, but like failing at it and doing the opposite. Like, there's no context. She's not an important character. It's the epilogue. Like, they're just, you know, wrapping things up. It makes no sense. And it happened a couple times throughout the book, and I just think it's weird. So, I think I'm giving it 2.5. Like, it's fine, the book per se, but like, why? Why? Today's book I read was Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. This is my 6th book by the author. So I've read a couple. Some of them, like The Kind Worth Killing, did enjoy. Some of them, like All the Beautiful Lies, I think. Could not even finish it. So much incest. No. But this one, I went into it pretty cautious because of the premise. You're following this woman who just went to her bachelorette party. She ends up cheating on her future rich husband. And then they get married and go on their honeymoon where everything happens. And I wasn't sure how I was feeling about the premise, to be honest. I don't mind unlikable characters, but I feel like it starts, rough whenever you already know she's a pretty shitty person and, that she's going to be, stalked and harassed by said men. So the rest has to be spoilers because I can't rant about this book because I hated it. Without mentioning spoilers, the only thing I want to mention before the spoilers is I couldn't figure out how to explain this book until I saw someone comment this on my video, and it made it put into words how I felt about this book. It wants to be feminist, but it comes off as really misogynistic. That's the best way to describe this book in my opinion, so thank you. So for the rest, it will be spoilers. It was very obvious from the beginning. Rich husband obviously was a setup. Shocking. We didn't see that coming whatsoever. Turns out that on the honeymoon, they go on an island which there's no Wi-Fi. Rich people there. There's literally 2 women on the island. Well, 3 with 1 employee. Like, it's a whole setup. Like, it's just so obvious. And the whole, like, misogynistic, turns out all of these men are all, like, white ring misogynistic men, wanting their revenge on women. Like, why are you marrying her if you know she cheated on you? Just so you can, like, attack her and, like, I don't have that much more to say about it. Like, it was just very obvious and not great. And the ending, which that's not a spoiler, in my opinion, is the best portion of the book. So that's the only reason I would consider maybe giving it 2 stars because at least the ending was satisfying. But yeah, it's just, like, you have to read it. This would be a book that, I'm not saying don't read it, but I'm warning you that you're probably going to read it. It was very readable. I read it quickly and I was glad to be done with it, and because the ending wasn't unsatisfying, I was kind of okay, but like, I hated it. So, at your own risk. And last but not least, I wanted to include Survive the Night. I did do a vlog with it if you want to see it, but I wanted to mention it here because it came out in 2021, very recently. And it is by Riley Sager. Once again, I have read quite a few of his books. This is his 5th one, and it's the 5th one that I've read by him. And the premise was up my alley. You're following this woman who wants to leave her boyfriend, university classes, in life and go back home because her roommate and best friend was murdered by the campus killer. So she gets a ride from someone at the, ride board, and the stranger will be driving her. And things are sketchy. She's a film major, and turns out that she sees movies in her head. The author kind of uses the premise of, is she crazy once again? She's off her meds. She was given meds by a psychiatrist after, the murder of her friend, and she's not taking them. So it starts like that. Not a bad beginning, but the rest of the book was cliche after cliche after cliche, and I got more and more mad with the character, with the story, with everything. I was starting to question if the author was actually the right author. Like, I literally went back and made sure I was reading the right book because it was bad. Like, it was straight up bad. And the rest will be spoilers until it's not. So again, it's going to be on the screen, very obvious. Long story short, because there are so many twists, but like, they're all super terrible. It ends up being that they stop at a rest stop, and she chooses to go back with him, even though the waitress is trying to help her. And she called the police, but the police, when they're there, she decides that no, everything is fine because she can't handle the kidnapper, of course. And she stabs him, come back to the rest stop. The waitress there, turns out she's the grandmother of her friend that was murdered, and she is dying of cancer, so she has nothing to lose, and she hired the man to kidnap her because she wants to question her because she was there, but she saw a movie in her head, so she doesn't know who the killer is. And like, it just continues like that. Turns out the killer is a boyfriend. He wants to kill her, and then, the car ends up falling off the bridge, and like, she survives. And do you know what I mean by all the cliches? Like, every single one you can think of, and there are more. I just skipped ahead, and I was like, what the hell is this book? This is so bad. The ending turns out that this was all a movie. It's based on her life, it truly happened, but they embellished it. And she just comes out of the movie, and then she gets in her car. That's the drop that just made it a 1 star for me. Like, that was the last drop for me. She gets in the car. Turns out that 6 years later, she is married to the guy that lied to her, kidnapped her, and that she stabbed. Because that's what we do. Yeah, we marry our kidnappers now. So, in my opinion, this is the worst book in this video. This is probably the worst book that I will have read this year. Like, I am so mad that I've read this book. Sure, it reads fast. Sure, in the beginning, I enjoyed the, ooh, is she crazy? Is, you know, the person that is driving the car, the killer, like, what's going on? It wasn't bad in the beginning, but it went so... I am mad. I am straight up mad I've read this book. So do yourself a favor. Skip it. If you want to hate read it, obviously, feel free to do so. But I hated it. I truly did. Now I want to know if you have read these, how you felt about them, because I want to know. Feel free to come back after you've read them if you haven't yet, because I always like to talk about these books, especially the ones I didn't like. We can just bash them together. So yeah, this is where I'm at. Definitely feel like The Push was by far the best one that I've read out of these four, the one I recommend. If you want to hate read, I would go with Every Vow You Break. My 2 cents, or maybe even Survive the Night, but I just thought it was really terrible. I don't think it's a satisfying one to read. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thumbs up, subscribe, let me know in the comment section what's the best mystery thrillers that came out recently that you've read. I want to know. I'm always more than willing to add more to my TBR. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in my next one very soon. Bye.